Good evening and welcome back to night 4 of Gateway's Virtual Speakers Series. My name is Ellen Grayson and I'm Director of Admissions and Outplacement here at the Gateway School. Tonight, we are super excited and incredibly lucky to be able to host two of the most creative and innovative entrepreneurs that really embody the spirit of collaboration and teamwork. Elizabeth Cutler and Julie Rice, co-founders of SoulCycle, which is actually celebrating its 15th anniversary, I think today or yesterday. They are the board members, investors, and advisors to many companies, including the Public Theater, Shopko, Urban Stems, and Weight Watchers, now branded as WW. And they're now the co-founders and CEO of their latest venture, Peoplehood, which you're going to get to in just a little bit. I'm also very honored to call them my personal friends. And before we get started, let's take a quick look at this video.
Take a risk and to jump. In those rooms, we're telling people to follow your dreams, try something new, and go where your heart is, because we certainly did that.
SoulCycle is an extraordinary place.
It's an exercise community. It's social and it's joyful and you feel like a rock star.
It's therapy, it's escape, it's fun.
People come to us for the workout, but they stay for the breakthroughs they have on the bike.
People get to change their lives, their bodies, their attitude.
You lose yourself in the rhythm and you lose yourself in the pack and you work way harder than you ever would on your own.
I love what I do because I get to be the best part of people's day.
There are no words for me to really describe it. It is joy, it is love, it is community.
You can have soulful moments, you can cry, you can laugh.
It makes you feel better about yourself, it makes you feel better about your day, and it just works.
You know, when I think about SoulCycle, what I find in the bike, for me, it's love.
Wow. Just watching that, I mean, I well up. I mean, it's like my mascara is going to start to run because there's so many rock stars, so many moments. There's so much, there's so much heart in that. I want to say cheers, you guys. Welcome. I'm over the moon to be here today. So I may or may not have told our guests today that we have a special school cocktail, and I may or may not have sent them a recipe. And you can see that they may or may not have made our school cocktail. But anyway, it's really a bit of selfish motives because it's been a tricky year and I want to capitalize our time together. Before we get started, I really have to say a very huge and heartfelt thank you from Gateway. You've always been such great supporters of the students the staff, and the incredible education that Gateway offers for students who have language-based learning differences. So I just want to say thank you so much for coming here and for always supporting us. I thought we'd start by just hearing a little bit about each of you personally. Maybe a little bit about when you became entrepreneurs, a little bit about how you started SoulCycle, anything you can give to us a little personally. Elizabeth, did you want to start?
Well, I want to start by saying thank you, Ellen, for having us tonight and for always being the biggest supporter of SoulCycle. And of course, just the way that you've gotten us involved in Gateway and bring the community together. It's wonderful to be here. So thank you so much. A little bit about entrepreneurism. It was I haven't watched that video in quite a long time, Julie. I don't know about you, but it's been certainly not over a year, maybe longer. And to see everyone together and what happens when people come together, as it is in the school community, to see the kind of synchronicities that happen and the way that people lift each other up, it's kind of amazing to watch that video and to have all those memories come flooding back. So I have to admit, I got a little choked up as well. But I think my mascara is intact for now. I think for me, entrepreneurialism is just following a dream that seems like something that has to be born, something that won't shut up. And I also found that for my own personality, I'm not a very good, I think I would be a much better employee now than I would have a long time ago. Just having worked with people, I think I would be better now, but I was such a bad employee. I had to start my own company. It was a personality defect. So I just try to learn about how best to find the best qualities. Oh, hi. Find the best qualities in the people that are around me and lift them up so that we can all run as fast as we can and do things together.
Thank you. Julie.
Hi, Ellen. Well, I agree with Elizabeth, and I'm so happy that we can support Gateway because honestly, Ellen, you have always been our biggest supporter and such a champion. And it's actually a shame that we don't have a whole feature or a portion of that video dedicated to you. Because you actually really are such a big part of our origin story. And I know Elizabeth and I were really looking forward to talking to you today. I think my story is not dissimilar to Elizabeth's. I think entrepreneurship sort of happened to us. In fact, I don't think it was maybe until 6 or 7 years after we'd started the business that somebody actually used the title for what we were doing, that being, oh, you're an entrepreneur. And I thought, wow, we're really something. Because before then we were just sort of, the painter, the front desk person, the person that vamped while we were waiting for an instructor, the person that cleaned the bikes. But I do agree with Elizabeth, and I think that's actually sort of the definition of being an entrepreneur. You learn to do it all, and I think that's what we did. And we really were two people that just did have a dream, and it was definitely a calling for us. And luckily, we were joined by a great group of people who also could understand what would happen if we could bring that to life. And so we just ran as quickly as we could to make that happen. And I think that's really what being an entrepreneur is just doing whatever needs to get done to take your project or your business or your dream to the next step.
Sure. I mean, at the beginning, there had to have been so many challenges, the initial challenges. If you could talk a little bit about just from and it's, you look back, and just say from day to day, what was that like?
Every day was a new learning experience. You kind of have to be ready to greet the day with asking yourself what is going to happen next. And there were so many things that happened that were exciting and so many things that happened that were hard to deal with and such huge issues, and learning how to soundproof a room and learning how to go through the city ordinances to get signage and to figure out all of the systems that are required to start a small business. It's really quite daunting. But Julie and I decided early on that we just hold each other accountable, and we would each make a list every day of the top 5 things that needed to get done. And then at the end of the day, we'd talk to each other about our list. And if there was still stuff left on, at least we knew that we could put that on for tomorrow. We didn't quite finish it today, but by the end of the week, everything was done, and many things that were started on that list got off, and many things were added to it. And it really helped us put one foot in front of the other to bring to life what we needed to bring to life.
Yeah, I mean, I can remember in the beginning. I mean, can you talk a little bit about some of the struggles? I mean, you're talking about 15 years ago. You know, you weren't at a state where we had social media in the way we do now, right? I mean, advertising, marketing. Talk a little bit about, you know, that, because, you know, I think, and I bet a lot of our at-home audience, you know, you look back in time and things have become so fast. Everything is accessible with your phone. I mean, you know, you think about that, and we didn't have that then. That really wasn't, you know, really technology just wasn't there yet, right? So can you talk a little bit about what the struggles and challenges you faced even in that way with a brand new company?
Definitely. So let me back up a little bit and just tell you that Elizabeth and I did not know each other. We were not best friends. People always assume that two women that started a business must have been roommates or something somewhere, right? But we were just two women with a business idea that we were introduced by a fitness instructor, actually. We met, we had a lunch, we had a great connection, and I left the lunch and Elizabeth said to me, "You research towels, I'm going to research real estate, and I'll call you on Thursday." And sure enough, on Thursday, my phone rang and Elizabeth had found something on Craigslist. And she said, "Why don't you meet me on 71st Street? And to your point of what did marketing or no social media look like, our first studio, as you well know, was in the rear lobby of a building on West 72nd Street. So when we signed the lease, we assumed that they'd let us put a sign outside. And we pretty quickly found out that we were not going to get any signage. So right there, obviously, you're at a huge business disadvantage. You know, you're in New York City trying to create a business. And normally, even if you have a pretty not great business, just by people walking by, you can capture some, you know, you can, are we on? Yeah, right? Can you see me, Elizabeth? Okay.
I'm missing you, yes.
I'm missing Ellen.
Yes, she'll be back.
Okay, great. Hi, Ellen. Anyway, so normally, you know, just by using the density of New York City, you can create some sort of a business just by putting a sign up, but we didn't even have a sign outside. And so our marketing plan consisted of a few things. First of all, I lived on the Upper West Side, so I would go door to door with flyers. I would start on Monday. My route would be to walk from 92nd Street to 65th Street on Columbus and see what businesses would let me leave flyers in there. On Tuesday, I would move over, you know, from Columbus over to Amsterdam, and I would start at 65th and walk up to 92nd and see who would let me. And I would just walk in and out of the streets. I kept a chart covering which blocks, you know, charting which blocks I covered each day. I would beg doormen to let me in mail rooms to leave flyers around. And then the most brilliant thing was Elizabeth actually bought a rickshaw on eBay, and she spray painted it yellow and silver, and she chained it up to the parking meter outside of the studio with a sign that said SoulCycle this way, pointing toward the studio. And what we did was we learned the traffic patterns. Like if it was busy on a Wednesday, we would put the rickshaw out because we always got a $65 ticket for chaining it up there. And so we tried to decide which days it would be worth putting out there and which days we were wasting our $65. But I think the real answer, and I think such a really interesting thing that sums it up, is we really became part of our community. It was actually places like Gateway, like really reaching out to schools or groups, you know, local groups, whether it was, you know, a PTA or a school community or the JCC, or, you know, we really embraced our local business owners. We really embraced the neighborhood, and we became a very local business. And it's interesting because you mentioned social media and everybody wants 1 million likes and 5 million views. But I think there's something very interesting about thinking about what does it look like to have like evangelists and loyalists rather than just having people that like or view. And our customers, as you know, since you were one of our early fanatics, were really loyal. So we didn't need a huge population. We just needed to really become part of the neighborhood. And that's what we did.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a great story, and I love hearing it. And I feel really blessed that I lived it. I feel really, you know, I picked up a flyer, you know, and I live on the Upper West Side, and I saw the rickshaw, and you know, I remember the days of coming in and you were folding towels. I mean, the first time I walked in, there you were folding towels. And, you know, if I can give you a great anecdotal along the way, just to you know, I remember that there were about 5 classes a day, and there was somebody behind the counter, you know, and she was panicked because there weren't enough towels, right, for the whole day. And class got started, and, you know, she was really looking to see, how do we get more towels in? Towel service wasn't there yet. It wasn't, you know, and I actually helped her. We ran the towels over, locked the door while class was on, ran the towels over to the laundromat, both of us holding a giant bag, walking across over to 71st Street to help get that going. I mean, you look at that and it's really just such an incredible journey from the days of you know, parked rickshaws outside and $65 tickets. That really made a difference, right? You didn't want to rack those up. That was money, right? I mean, that was really important. And you know, money was thin. You know, talk about also, and I think a lot of people in our audience would really resonate with, you were both really young moms. You had young children.
Mm-hmm. We did. I mean, when we started SoulCycle, Phoebe, my oldest daughter, was 5 months, and Elizabeth's youngest daughter, Lucy, was 5 months. So Elizabeth had 2 girls, and I had 1 daughter at the time. And yeah, it was definitely a juggle. There was no doubt about it. You know, luckily for me, I lived across the street, which was such a great sort of helpful thing. You know, I remember that in the early days when we would close the studio on Sundays at, you know, around noon, one of the things you're not allowed to do in New York is put out the garbage on the curb before 9 p.m. So, you know, I would have to put Phoebe to bed and then go back and take out the garbage, because that's just kind of how life was. And you know, I think all along the way, people have really asked us sort of the whole, you know, young mom, work-life balance type of question. But I think for, you know, for our daughters, I think they really grew up in the business. I think there's definitely a real pride around having been a part of it, having been a part of the journey. And so it was definitely challenging, but I also really have to say, you know, much like your story of, you know, you helping bring the towels across the street, we were such a village building that company.
Absolutely.
You know, we were such a group of people who just took care of each other that I never really felt strapped. I have to say, I never ever really had that moment of saying like, oh my God, you know, my kid is sick. How am I going to do this? It always felt like there was a pair of hands around to either take my kid or check in a rider. And, you know, I have to say, you know, I am super grateful for being a part of a village like that. And, you know, I hope my kids remember what that feels like, because, you know, for us, what came out of SoulCycle was really, you know, sort of the miracle of community and working together. Yeah. And I think that the takeaway of that is just, anyway, for me, it was really one of the most valuable experiences of my life.
Yeah. I mean, I absolutely agree. It was, everyone was, you know, willing to get their hands dirty. Everyone was willing to, you know, hold a baby, fold a towel, you know, clean a bike. You know, there were other really small challenges when you look at it. You had one studio, it had no showers. The front desk was jerry-made. You couldn't actually access the front desk unless you jumped over the front desk itself, because it was attached to the studio. I mean, it was really, when you look at it, you know, it was tiny. It was little. I mean, you know, and there it was, and it grew. I want to move forward from there. Let's talk a little bit about, you know, because here you are, and while there was so much joy and community and everything we were doing, and the exercise and the endorphins and being healthy and all that great stuff as this community was building and building and building. But there must have been times where you were super afraid that you made a mistake. Those days where you were like, oh my God, I have buyer's remorse. What did I get into? What did I do? Can you speak to that at all?
I don't think that really ever necessarily happened. I think we just loved what we were doing. You know, everybody says that wonderful saying, like, if you do what you love, you'd never work a day in your life. And we certainly were lucky enough to get to feel like that. I mean, my husband could not imagine living with a person who was so excited to wake up in the morning and go to work. I could not wait.
Yeah.
It was just, and also because getting the opportunity to ride and to be with people and to listen to great music and to just feel better when I got off the bike and just feel like, okay, now I can start my day, and to meet people like you. I would not have any pictures of my children if it weren't for you, Ellen. The printed pictures that I have in my home were because you took them. And so there was just incredible magical connections and just relationships that happened as a result of getting to go to these studios and getting to meet the riders and getting to work with an extraordinary group of people who were so dedicated to the mission. And it was a lot of hard work. It didn't mean that it wasn't difficult. There were tons of situations that happened. There were floods, there were fires, there was everything biblical that you can imagine. There were everything. There were sound complaints. There were, we had it. But I think because the attitude of everyone was so get it done and so be in it together, that it made it so much less lonely.
Yeah.
It was one of the great gifts of SoulCycle, for sure.
Julie, can you add to that at all?
Yeah, look, like mistakes, definitely. Regrets, not so much, right?
Right.
And, I think that, sure, Elizabeth said to me, the one great thing about, and I know we're talking a lot about teamwork and collaboration. And I think that looking back on the success story of SoulCycle, really, the success of it to me is really the type of partnership that Elizabeth and I had. I mean, when you talk about teamwork, it's, we really were and remain true partners. But I think that when we did make big mistakes, which cost us a lot of money, and we had, not very much in the bank in the beginning, my tendency would be to like freak out and think we had to like close our doors and board it up, and Elizabeth would always say, Julie, we didn't go to business school, so this is just our tuition. We're just paying our tuition. And she would calmly sort of pay the bill for the mistake or whatever, and we would move on. And I think that's really, all you can do. I think that you have to expect the mistakes, and you learn from them, and you keep going.
It's it really is not just a great attitude, but it's really a great lesson. It's, it's that driving force of, you push on and you keep going forward. And the idea of, some of those mistakes were the tuition. That was your education. I think it's really, it's a really incredible way of looking at it. And I appreciate that. So, you sold about 4 years ago, and today SoulCycle has over 100 locations. It's really incredible. From a 30 bike room to, there must have been some, pivotal moments, where you really knew you were onto something. There was a turning point and you really knew you were onto something. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So I think, there's so many, everybody like asks about what was the moment. And I think what's so funny about life and so true about SoulCycle is that it wasn't one thing. It was like 100 small things that then all kind of mixed together in this alchemical way and became, what it is today. One of the things that is most memorable to me was the day that we had our first sold out class, and what a huge big deal that was, because Ellen, as you'll remember, I think you might've been the only person in the first class that you took. And so to have a whole room sold out was such a gift, and we were so excited about it. We really celebrated it. And then to start to see people really share what they had found at SoulCycle, which they were finding in those rooms, was the other sort of, for me anyway, the next step sort of in the journey, when we would go into studios and we didn't necessarily know these communities, and we were super afraid that if we weren't there to sort of love it into existence, that it wouldn't get to be born in the same way that the Upper West Side was, or someplace else in New York. And after a year of being open in West Hollywood, we had such a phenomenal experience because in New York, what would happen is people would say, oh, I started riding 2 years ago and, I've lost 10 pounds, but that's not what happened. And then people would go on to describe all of these human experiences that we all get to participate in at some point. Someone's sick, someone's died, someone's, gotten divorced or split up or been through a terrible breakup or lost their dog or whatever, these things that just are moments to kind of pause and reflect and grieve and move on and heal. And people were finding the ability to dig deep into themselves in those rooms and on those bikes because it was dark. And people were, alone on the bike with the loud music, but we were all together. We were all moving together. And there was a certain kind of vibration that happened as a result of that just, it allowed all of us, myself included, to have these emotional breakdowns and breakthroughs and come out the other side stronger and more able to face the day. And once we started to realize that people would be able to find that in California while we weren't living there full time, it really made such a huge difference to understand that those kinds of breakthroughs could happen for folks. But, we did a ton of hand holding. Amy Peck trained, she lived there for weeks to train everyone who was in that room, to just do as much as we could to make that community feel as special as the ones that had already been created. And we really tried to make that intentional. And we really tried to give that to each and every one of the studios and each and every one of the people who work there and each and every one of the people who walk through the door.
No, it's really, you think about it also. And if I can, again, just give you a quick anecdotal, because then I have some other questions to ask. I want to take questions at the end as well. But I'm just thinking back to, 15 years ago. And, you didn't have this kind of Monday sign up. In fact, signups were on Sunday then. Julie, I remember that, guys? Yeah. And you would call the studio or actually go down to the studio and you would sign up that way. And I remember I was driving up to the country. It was Sunday. I was driving up to the country and I pulled over on the Taconic, and I had pulled over kind of on the left shoulder. I know most people would pull over on the right. I guess I thought I was in England, and I just pulled over on the left, and a state trooper came behind me, and I was on the phone, and I was actually on the phone with the front desk, just booking a bike. And I was on the phone actually with you, Julie, and he came in. And, he said he thought I needed help. And I said, it's not an emergency, but just give me 1 second. And I just finished with my booking. I didn't get a ticket, but I got a bike. And, I moved on from there. So true story, So look, looking back, right? You have to, look back now, I think, can you give our audience 3 lessons, maybe, 3 lessons about starting and running a business, maybe something for our young entrepreneurs out there, and maybe hitting on even collaboration and teamwork, if you can share.
Sure. Well, first of all, one lesson that I've learned from Elizabeth is that you have to trust your gut. I think that especially as a first-time entrepreneur, I cannot tell you how many times Elizabeth and I would call other people who we thought knew how to do it or knew how to do it the right way to ask their opinion, only to find out after we'd gone around the whole world to come back home again that we should have just listened to our own intuition and done it the way that we thought we should have done it in the first place. So I would say trusting yourself is obviously, if there are people around that you can learn from, that's great, but really trusting your own instincts, I think that's pretty amazing. The second thing I would say is I think that entrepreneurs tend to get overwhelmed. By definition, as an entrepreneur, you're a dreamer, you're a big thinker. And normally you have some idea inside of you that is really burning you up, right? And you just want the whole world to be able to see it and know it and experience it. And you just think about it in such a big way. And then often, at least, I find for me, I have such big dreams that I can completely overwhelm myself. So taking those big ideas and, dissecting them into small little steps and just putting one foot in front of the other. If we had set out, on day one to say, like, how are we going to turn these 30 bikes into 100 studios? Mm-hmm. We would have, worn ourselves out just thinking about it. But instead, it was just like every customer mattered. every person that got on a bike was one person closer to filling the 30-person room. You know, Elizabeth and I used to just say to each other every day, like, how many people do we have to have in the room today to be able to pay our rent for next month?
Yeah.
And that's what we used to do. And slowly but surely, you know, if you really are focused on the task at hand, you know, with integrity and love and determination, it eventually will move you right to the next step. So I always say, you know, big dreams, small steps. And then in terms of, you know, collaboration, one thing that Elizabeth and I really did over the years was we learned how to collaborate. We did not come into a partnership understanding, you know, how to communicate successfully, how to see somebody else's point of view, you know, how to, you know, divide everything but fairly. Like, I think that, you know, people are under the impression that we all know how to do these things, that certain things like collaboration or leadership or communication are skills that we are born with, when the truth is they are absolutely not. And these soft skills are everything when it comes to teamwork. And so we really early on, as we began to see the business getting successful, we hired a you know, a life coach who helped us to understand how to communicate with each other. We were lucky enough to have Amy Pack, our Chief Culture Officer. And as we learned how to communicate with each other, she took the lessons we were learning and taught them to the rest of the organization. And I think we were really focused on, you know, teaching collaboration, not just assuming people knew how to collaborate. And I think that was like really the differentiator. I also think, you know, collaboration has to be a priority and it has to be rewarded. And there has to be an environment where collaborative thinking and ideas are honored. Right? You know, if you have meetings and you create spaces where people feel like their ideas are important or them helping get something done matters, then people want to collaborate. If you take people for granted and just shut them down, then collaboration is no longer a part of the ethos. It sounds intuitive, but interestingly enough, it's actually really not. And the other thing is, like, it takes time and work. You know, collaboration actually takes a lot of thought. And for us, it was really a priority and obviously became a core value of our business. But I would say that, you know, learning and teaching people how to collaborate is something that is well worth investing the time in.
So I really, really love everything you just said. It really resonates with our own school mission and ethos in that we teach collaboration, we teach listening, you know, we teach, you know, hearing each other and leadership. We have community badges that we give to our students who achieve in some of these areas. When I say achieve, and I mean that they are using these skills that they're being taught, and they are skills that are taught. They're not inherent, and it really is so important. And I love that you had a life coach to work together and figure it out, right? I mean, it's evolved. It's the way you have to kind of, you know, move forward in that way. It's a process, right? I mean, this is all part of process. And it's really beautiful to hear about it. I guess, you know, I know I'm going to open up to questions in just a minute, but I really do want to hear. So, you know, it's been about 4 years. Tell us what you've been up to. I want to hear all about Peoplehood. Tell us about Peoplehood.
Well, it's kind of a natural segue, right? So, you know, really, you know, what we came away with after our SoulCycle experience, and I'm sure that you can attest to this, is the lesson that we learned from creating something like SoulCycle was it really was never about fitness, right? It was about community. It was about collaboration. It was about learning how to support the people around you. And I think that what we really saw was that in those rooms, in those dark rooms, you know, people really began to understand what it felt like to be connected with yourself and to be connected with other people around you. And yet, as we are talking about it, people would leave those rooms and would find that they understood what those feelings were, but yet did not actually have the skills to go out into the world and have that conversation with somebody else, or be that leader that could, have transparent conversations with a team. So we've spent the last couple of years really working with a bunch of very different, interesting, different professors and therapists and research teams and, priests and rabbis and AA leaders to really understand, what are sort of the best of communication and collaboration skills that are out there? And could we actually turn those into a product, right? I mean, is there a world where we are able to drop into peoplehood and have a 50-minute experience where we come together, everybody has a turn to express themselves, everybody has a turn to be heard or listen to somebody else, and we learn how to talk and we learn how to listen. And if we keep doing it over and over again, right, it becomes really relational fitness. What we're learning, through practicing and through having these sort of aha moments all together is we are learning how to be in relationship with each other and be in relationships where we hold space for each other, where we are having dialogues, not just two monologues where people talk at each other, but people really are trained to listen to each other. And so we're getting ready to open our first relational health studio sometime in the fall. It'll also be a digital space. But what we're really hoping to do is to create a community built around relational or social health. And after a year of isolation, and obviously, as generations of people that are getting less and less able to articulate their feelings to each other, we're really hoping that this is something that people want to use. And so we don't know. We're still, we feel like first-time entrepreneurs all over again. Some days it feels like creating is going great, and some days we're sort of looking at each other and going like, is anybody coming to this? But it definitely feels exciting and it feels timely. And the most important thing I can say is, just like SoulCycle, it feels like something I want to use. I want to go someplace and feel like I have a place to talk about the things that are making me feel anxious. I want people to hear me. I want to feel like I matter. And I want to take those skills home and be able to use those same techniques so that my children feel heard and my husband feels like he's in a relationship with somebody that cares. And honestly, the world is moving so fast. I don't think we all take time to do that. And so that's what peoplehood is. It's really sort of, it's a new concept built around relational health.
I really, just hearing all that, I have so many things that I want to take, as part of that. Number one, I have to go back though for a second. It was a little bit about the fitness and the physical fitness as well, because I've had truckloads of sweaty clothing and empty gain bottles to kind of show for that. Totally. But I love this idea of relationship fitness. I mean, that's really, at the heart of what it is. And, you hear that and it's so true. We're all in kind of such a space and time where things are so quick that there isn't a lot of time to always listen. And it is a practice, again, a process to be able to give and take in that way. I just want to ask you a little bit about the importance of mentorship. Did you have some very specific mentors, your mentors to so many people, heroes to people like me. But really, did you have any very specific mentors you can share with us?
It's so interesting. Like Julie said, we looked for mentors like crazy and never really found anybody who really understood our business the way that we did. That being said, we had a number of people in the business community who were so generous with their time and really helped us to meet people that we got a lot out of from either from a business or personal perspective. I mean, Mickey Drexler was incredibly generous with us over the years, and we named him the Godfather of Soul. He was just an incredible supporter and champion. And there were many, many wonderful people throughout the years that we were lucky enough to meet and who would be really helpful if we ever had a question about something, regardless of what it was. And so I think that kind of goes to the importance of networking and the importance of just, making sure that as you meet people that you leave them with a kind impression or a good impression, and a way for them to know you a little bit, and a way for them to care, so that if you ever do need anything, that somebody's willing to take your phone call and willing. We were always appreciative and always sent gifts to say thank you for the time when people spent a bunch of time with us. And I think that that ability to kind of form your own web and form your own network has certainly been very supportive of us over the years.
Yeah, no, I really, listening to this is just so, everything you're saying is just so important. One of the questions that just came up, and I can see, is how important do you think exercise is to mental health?
Yeah, there's no doubt that exercise is extremely important to mental health. I mean, getting grounded in your own body. And first of all, exercise does provide us with that time and space that we're talking about, right? When you start to move, you have made a commitment to be off your phone, to take a little bit of time out for yourself. And I think that's first and foremost. But then obviously, there's every scientific study in the world that shows that, the release of stress and physical exercise is tied so much to our mental health. And I will tell you that as we're thinking about creating peoplehood, although you will not need your buckets of gain and bags full of workout clothes, I will tell you that we are absolutely going to incorporate a little bit of movement and definitely some breathing, so that people can get grounded in their own bodies before they try to embark on deep conversations.
No,
yeah, and I think it's really important for young people to realize that that any kind of physical movement, any kind of fitness is an investment in your health. And everybody says health is wealth, and it is absolutely true. And if you start to develop those habits when you're young and they stay with you your whole life, it's just an incredible, incredible, meaningful gift that you can give to yourself, that you'll appreciate every year of your life.
No, I think it's such an important message, really. I have a question that says, or actually it says, thank you for all the fundraiser rides that you guys have hosted. How did you start those as part of your mission?
Well, we're moms, so we wanted to do anything that we could for the schools. And we thought, well, what can we do if we don't have a lot of money? At least what we can do is we can provide the venue, and we can help the schools with a new kind of way to raise money, because schools are always trying to figure out how to do that. And sometimes people get a little bit tired of doing the same thing over and over again. And so this seemed like a new and unique way for people to come together and raise money for good causes. And we raised a lot of money at SoulCycle over the years.
We sure have, Well, guys, I want to thank you for coming today, for spending time with us. We are, again, we're grateful for your time. We're grateful for your advice. We're grateful for everything that you've shared with us today. We are so excited to see and be part of coming to peoplehood. And thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you, Ellen. It's always fun to catch up with you.
Oh, this has been a pleasure. I've been over the moon to have you here for the past, kind of hour or so. I really do appreciate it.
We love you.
Thank you so much.
Bye, Ellen.
What a great community. Thanks for including us tonight.
Thank you.
Bye.